The A-List Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Welcome into the A-List Podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis, joined as always by Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. Finally, the first round of this series has been closed out. How do you two feel? Welcome.
It's about damn time.
It's been a minute.
That's how I feel. It's about damn time that we can talk about the second round and not talk about it. And if only they get there, or when they get there, they're there. It's here. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a different kind of challenge for the Celtics, and it'll be only time will tell whether they can meet that challenge.
Gary, how do you feel?
Well, it's a relief, I think, for the organization that they are able to get it done in 6, and be able to just, after watching what happened with Milwaukee and, teams like, Sacramento's on the ropes and Memphis could be out, all these teams that are higher seeds kind of having trouble. The Celtics were, going to mess around and find out what happened with them if they continue to mess around with the Hawks and play with their food. And they just got business done. Great last 4 minutes of the game, 5 minutes of the game to just push them back. Atlanta was eventually going to back up and become themselves. Like they weren't, and it took till 5 minutes left of the game. They played a good 43 minutes. And the Celtics were the better team, obviously, in the fourth quarter. And so, I think this is the next step. And obviously, I think everybody's been looking forward to Philly for months now. And then there obviously was supposed to be Milwaukee after that, maybe. And now, you could get real unique with the Knicks or the Heat if they happen to get past the Sixers in this next round. And then the road to the finals is different. I don't know if it's easier. That's a debatable, because Milwaukee was not playing good basketball over the last few weeks. They were not, even starting with that, when they got blasted by the Celtics at home by 41 points in late March. I think that the Bucks have just kind of not been themselves, and they show that they're beatable. So who knows if this is an easier road, but it's definitely a different road. But it's good for the Celtics to just get past this, get a couple days rest, and now move on, like the Sherrod said, to a different challenge. Mm-hmm. But I think that this series made them better. They were tested. Like, Quinn Snyder's a good coach. He exposed some weaknesses that Celtics got to work on. I think this makes it better for them than if they had done this easy sweep and just walked in to this Philadelphia series with not even being challenged. They were challenged.
And to that point, it was all hands on deck for Game 6 in Atlanta. Like you said, they played with their food for a minute, but Tatum, 30 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. That was actually his second 30-point game in that series. Jaylen Brown with 32. Al Horford had to show out with a double-double as well. Trae Young, obviously, he really wanted this as well. And everyone on both sides, the fun part of this was apologizing to Janet Jackson. But what did you see from the Celtics in this series that, like you said, will prepare them for now this next step against Philly?
I saw a team that obviously had some things to work on. Now, they didn't play badly in the series. They played mostly well. Atlanta, I think, everyone in Boston took Atlanta for granted because we haven't seen them most of the year. They've been a team completely under the radar. They've 41-41, but they were number 3 in the NBA in scoring. Okay, so this team puts up points. And the only way that they could have won this series or had a chance is what they did is get into shootouts. They got into shootout in Game 3, and they got into a shootout in Game 5, and they pretty much got into a shootout in Game 6, but the Celtics were just better. So I think the Celtics learned, one, they got to tighten up that defense. They got to be more consistent. Joe Mazzulla's got to use his bench more. As you saw, we saw Grant Williams. We saw a little bit of Peyton Pritchard at the end. Like, use the guys that you have. Use Grant Williams. Grant Williams playing good basketball. He should not be getting DNPs. He's too good for that. Use your bench. If guys are not playing well, take them out the game. Like, this is no egos here. You can have those discussions in the offseason. Right now, you're trying to win games. So I think they learned a little bit about themselves. They were pushed. And, Philadelphia has elements that Atlanta doesn't have, but Atlanta also has elements that Philadelphia does not have. They don't have the dynamic point guard. I thought DeAndre Hunter was great in this series offensively. He burned the Celtics on their doubles of Trae Young. I mean, he was very good. Philadelphia doesn't really have that type of guy. PJ Tucker, not that type of shooter, even though he can hit one on occasion. Like, Philadelphia brings some different elements, but I think this Atlanta series brought out the best in the Celtics, and I think they're a better team now than they were 2 weeks ago because of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some matchups with Atlanta that just did not play to what Boston does well. And Atlanta, over the course of that series, was able to take advantage of that. I thought one of the biggest issues that I thought the Celtics had was just Al Horford's defense. I mean, Al was in some really bad matchups because he was playing against guys who were basically small forwards who were just long. And that was problematic because whenever there would be a switch defensively, he'd wind up with a guy like DeAndre Hunter, or he would wind up with Trae Young. And those are just bad matchups for him to have steady doses of throughout the course of the game. So that's one of the things that I thought made Atlanta a unique challenge that I didn't think the Celtics over the course of that series did as good a job with as they could have. Now, fast forward to Philly, very different. Joel Embiid is very much in the defensive wheelhouse of Al Horford. I think he will be more impactful because he's dealing with someone who, while from top to bottom is a more talented player, Al's strengths align themselves better defensively with what Joel is looking to do. And so Al may not win that battle. I don't expect him to win that battle, but he will compete, I think, at a better and a higher level consistently against Joel than he did against some of those Atlanta sort of kind of hybrid bigs that they threw out there. But the bottom line is this. The Celtics have to be better. And they have to be better in terms of how they use the guys that play normally and the guys that don't play normally. Jason Tatum averaged better than 30 points a game during the regular season. He had 2 out of 6 games where he had 30 or more points. He has to be more impactful. The best player for the Celtics in that Hawks series was Jaylen Brown. I really don't think it's much of an argument when you look at not only the numbers, but the impact of what he did when it mattered absolutely the most out there. And that just can't be the case against Philadelphia. When you look at the guys that Tatum is going to be matched up against, he should absolutely dominate those matchups. I don't think the Sixers have the kind of depth at that position to deal with what Tatum brings to the table. It's just a matter of him finding the right spots, when to be attacking, when to be aggressive, and making sure that he's filling all the boxes out there. I went and looked up that I did a little hood homework, as Gary Washburn likes to call it. And I did some numbers on Tatum. Now, get this now. When Tatum takes at least 20 shots from the field, at least 10 shots from three-point range, and gets to the free throw line at least 10 times a game, the Celtics are 12-2. And the reason why those numbers matter is because it shows that he's not only being aggressive in terms of shooting the ball, but also attacking the rim. That's how he gets to the free throw line. When he's able to do that consistently, they're going to be a very good team. And I isolated, did a little bit of hood homework, courtesy of Gary Washburn, and I looked at his numbers when he just gets 10 or more free throws. And when he takes 20 more shots, at least 20 shots, at least 10 3-point attempts, and at least 10 free throws, there's like an 85% winning percentage at 12-2. When he just takes 10 free throw attempts per game, they won like 80% of the game. So when he's checking multiple boxes along those lines, they have a higher winning percentage than if he just gets to the free throw line. So Tatum being able to put together a more well-balanced attack offensively, that's a huge factor in Boston putting these Sixers away sooner rather than later.
So it seems as though you two weren't as concerned about their performance on the road in the series. Before we finally move on from Atlanta, because we've talked about them enough at this point, but do you think it was just a blip, the fact that they weren't performing the way Celtics fans expected them to, or do you think it actually exposed some flaws that are going to be potentially a problem against Philly?
Well, I'm going to go back to something that Gary mentioned briefly, and I think it's one of those things that we just kind of glossed over. Atlanta has a new coach, and he's a pretty damn good coach in Quinn Snyder. And I think Quinn recognize some things that they could do. If they did those things at a high level, it would give them a chance to compete. And there's no question, they clearly identified attacking Al Horford with multiple bodies was going to be a key to them being able to compete. That's why you saw a lot of their when they run their pick and roll, that pick and roll stopped when they got Al Horford matched up with whoever was the ball handler. And then everyone just kind of went flat. And that's something that I think Philadelphia, if they try to employ that strategy, I think it's going to blow up in a really bad way for them, because Al matches up much better against the Philadelphia players in terms of pick and rolls than he did against the Atlanta guys. And so that, to me, was one of the things that I'm not sure if the Sixers can take a lot away from this Atlanta series, because their personnel is very different than Atlanta's. And because of that difference, I'm not sure if you can do – this isn't an apples to apples type of thing where what worked in Atlanta, we can make that work for us. Philadelphia has to figure out what they do well against the Celtics if they're going to win. I'm not sure how much they're going to glean from what the Hawks did.
Yeah, I don't look at this like I wasn't concerned in terms of of course, I don't think anybody – the Celtics wanted to face a game, so they needed to close this out. You do not want to have one game for it all. And they watched Milwaukee lose and get knocked out. You don't want this to be a historic upset. You don't want, if they had lost this series, it would have been some considerable probably off-season changes. It would have been a step back for the organization. All the talk about unfinished business, that would have just gone out the window, and there had been a lot of discussion about what to do moving forward. So they avoided disaster. But I also look at the series at Atlanta could not pull away from it. Game 2, the Celtics dominate first two games. Game 3, where Atlanta played amazing, all their bench guys. Tatum had a chance to tie that game with a minute left and missed, and so did Brogdon. And both missed open threes. If they hit those threes, the Celtics could have conceivably swept the series. And then we all know the debacle of Game 5, where they had the damn thing won, and then Trey goes off. They made a bunch of boneheaded errors. So Atlanta wasn't close, but obviously, it's all about just winning the game. Atlanta won 2 games. They won one when they played amazingly well offensively, and the Celtics kind of blew their chances to tie, and then the comeback win. So I don't think it's I think the Celtics should be worried. I just think if you want to look at it positively, I think they look back and go, we were tested. This is what we needed. This is what Quinn Snyder is doing, is what Doc Rivers is studying. Okay, how can I get Tyrese Maxey into space against Horford? How can I? But they don't have. The thing about Philadelphia is they got Embiid, they got the big man in the middle. He's going to attract a lot of attention. They got Harden, who can't get off the dribble to the rim off the dribble like he used to, right? So he's more of a distributor. He can get to the rim and get to the free throw line, or he's got to get hot from the three-point line. Harden is not, and I'm not, he's not the player he once was. Now he's not trash or he's not terrible. He's 33 years old. I mean, that's what happens when you get 33 in most occasions, except if you're a guy like LeBron James or whatever, or Kobe, you lose a step. Okay. And so James Harden, to me, is a guy who, I'm looking at his stats this season. James.
Good research. Okay,
James, 21 points, 10. He's more of a distributor. 10.7 assists, led the league, 38% from 3, 44% overall from the field. A solid, but he's not the 50 ball. I mean, remember, he averaged 36 points a game 5 years ago. And 34 the year after that. Now he's averaging 21, so he doesn't slow down. I mean, James Harden has averaged 20 points a game for the last 11 seasons, okay? But now it's down to 21, okay? His lowest since his second season, since his third season in Oklahoma City when he was coming off the bench. So this is a different James Harden, okay, if you look at the Philadelphia roster. So they don't have – Maxey's a guy, but Maxey hasn't played well against the Celtics this season. and we always can talk about our friend Tobias Harris. What the hell is he going to do? I think he's got to have to be great. So Philadelphia brings different challenges. They don't have the thing about Atlanta that I think a lot of people didn't know, that they had talent that just dudes that just were inconsistent. Like DeAndre Hunter is a dude that people have been waiting on. The dude was a lottery pick. Okay. People have been waiting on DeAndre Hunter for years to be that ultimate 3-and-D guy, to be a guy who can average 20 points a game, shut down the top defender. Like, people have been waiting for DeAndre Hunter to the light to go on. And it did in this series. Now, he had 27 one game. He hit every damn near open shot last night. I mean, he burned the Celtics on when they tried to double Trey. And we've all seen him for years. He'll generally miss the three. There's a time he'll score 5 points. In this series, he showed himself. Okay. The Atlanta don't really have that type of guy. McDaniel's coming off the bench, maybe. DeAnthony Melton, they've got more older players, but Atlanta had talent. Okongwu, that dude's a beast in the paint. In addition to Capella, I thought he's better than Capella. If I'm Atlanta, I start him over Capella now because Capella got no offensive game. But, we'll see what the Hawks do in the future. But, they had dudes that I think people hadn't heard about. They were like, man, this dude's pretty good. Sadiq Bey, the Celtic killer. Bogdanovic, a deadly three-point shooter. Like, Atlanta doesn't have that just knockdown three-point guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have that, I'm looking at their numbers. Like, Maxi's their best three-point shooter at 43%, but, you wouldn't say he's a sniper. Okay, but he's good. But he's been bad against the Celtics season. You look at Tucker only takes 2 per game. You look at these guys, and it's like Melton is 39%. But yeah, they got talent without question. But I think the Celtics have been tested in a way that should prepare them better for this series. I think I'm not saying take a sigh of relief, but they ain't got to deal with some of the youth, the DeJounte Murrays. They ain't got to deal with some of them dudes that are 24 years old and trying to get in their ass. Like, they ain't got – Philadelphia's a little bit more longer in the tooth. So it'll be a more physical series, a more strategic series. But I think the Celtics will be like, damn, we ain't got to see, Trey running around screens, DeJounte getting to his spots, Hunter hitting threes. Like, I think – they'll be better prepared than they were if they hadn't played this team.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The weird thing about Philly, though, and I just chime in really quick, is that, Philadelphia, we don't think of them as a three-point shooting team, and yet they led the league this year in three-point shooting percentage. But the thing that they do that I think is a little bit of a misnomer about that is that they don't take a ton of threes. They're very efficient with that. Even though they led the league in three-point percentage, they were like 16th in three-point attempts per game. So it's not like they're jacking them up at a high volume. They're just making the most of their opportunities. If you're the Celtics, you know that that's a weapon that they are very judicious in how they utilize that. So you got to be smart if you're Boston. You can't let them get into a rhythm with that shot because they've shown the ability as a team to make that shot. But again, I think the Celtics present a different kind of challenge defensively because they've got so much defensive versatility where even when they're switching, there are very few times where Philadelphia is going to get a switch that's going to be a significant advantage for them in terms of scoring the ball, particularly from three-point range. So it'll be interesting to see how the Celtics handle, a Philadelphia team that has shown the ability to knock down the threes at a high level, but they just don't take a lot of those shots.
Yeah, I mean, I think Embiid takes almost 25% of their shots. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he's not he's a occasional 3-point shooter.
Right.
I think they're going to take their chances with trying to make guys like Tobias Harris beat them. Harris, wildly inconsistent, a guy who has you see the talent, but it's just never. Now he's 30, so he's 10 years in the league, 11 years. This is who he is. He's a compliment, but I think that they're going to have to take their chances with defend. And I think they can defend him well. But you look at some of the other guys, Shake Milton, Georges Niang, like guys who don't, not say scare you, but are capable. But I think the Celtics, there's a reason why the Celtics went 3-1 against them this season and why it took a 52-point game from Joel Embiid for the Sixers to win and come back and win the only time they beat them. So it should be interesting how the Celtics, if they come up with any different defensive wrinkles for this team. But I think, as I'll stress, I think playing Atlanta will benefit them because Philadelphia is older. They're not as athletic. They're starting 37-year-old PJ Tucker, in addition to Embiid, who's 28 and got a lot of miles, 33-year-old Harden, 30-year-old Harris. They got Niang's 29. Like, they ain't got a bunch of young stallions out there like the Hawks did.
That being said, basketball, we're in the postseason, but baseball also back. Grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are here to stay. And there's no better place to get in on MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official partner of Major League Baseball. And new customers in Massachusetts can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Finally, you can bet on all your favorite sports, from the money line to point spreads to player props and more. We talk about FanDuel every week on this app, on this podcast, because of the fact that their app is so safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. You can visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. So we've talked a little bit about Philly. Obviously, this is going to be a very compelling matchup for multiple reasons, but Joel Embiid, we know that he did suffer a knee sprain at one point. Do you two think that could be have any effect on the outcome of this series?
Joel Embiid is going to play.
Obviously.
Yeah, I don't care what
Obviously.
And the doctors and all the folks in Philly say Joel Embiid is going to play and he's going to be impactful. He should be this year's MVP, but based on the way he's played. For him, the Celtics, they have been that albatross around his neck that he just hasn't been able to get free of. And so a chance for him to get the Sixers beyond the second round again and have a chance to do it against the Celtics, he's not going to miss any games. I think part of his motivation is going to be to see what happened with Milwaukee. Milwaukee's best player, missed some time out there, and the Bucks were never able to get back on track. And if you are Joel Embiid, you don't want to have an off season like that where, you didn't play through some pain and some discomfort because you just didn't feel like playing. And ultimately you're in that 1-2-3 Cancun mode after 5 games. You're not trying to be that guy. So I think he will play. I think he will be impactful. And I think if you're the Celtics, my goal is to run your usual offense, but make him work a little bit harder. Force him to actually have to defend away from the basket. And if he decides that he's not going to do that, then make him pay. So, or make the Sixers pay, I should say. So I expect to see Joel out there, and I do expect the Celtics will look to take advantage of him, whether he's healthy or not.
Yeah, I don't think that you use that single coverage that you did the last time they played when he had 52 points, when he was hitting everything. I think Embiid, I don't know about the knee, but I think I was talking to Jared Greenberg from TNT and he at Atlanta, and he pointed out like that Embiid has not always had some kind of injury during a playoff series. Like there's always something going on. In Toronto last year, it was his eye. He had the eye, when he was falling, he had the eye socket, and that affected him in the next series against Miami. In this series against the Nets, just previous, he had the knee. He missed the game with the knee. So is he going to play all the games?
Right.
It's a good question because he's always seems to have some. Secondly, with that in mind, in terms of his injury history and the fact his lower extremities, I think the Celtics need to focus, like Sherrod said, on making him work on defense, getting him tired, getting him to where he is worn the hell out. Remember now, there's only the games every other day now. Okay, everyone's like, well, the Celtics lost. to the Hawks, so they give Embiid 2 more days to rest that knee. True. However, with the schedule of the series now, it's every other day until games 2 days between game 6 and potential game 7. So Embiid's gonna have to come back every day, just like Robert Williams on the Celtics side. He's gonna have to, this is where all that load management and all that training and all that, doing the stuff to your body to make sure you're sound and strong, pays off. So let's see what Embiid has. Does he have a long 7-game or 6-game series in him? I think it's important for the Celtics to get that first game, couple days off. Philadelphia might be rested as opposed to rested. The Celtics will be rested. They're not practicing Friday. They're not practicing Saturday. They only practice on Sunday, so they get 2 full days off, then a practice, then Monday night's the game. The Sixers, I want to say, well, when did they eliminate? Last Sunday, they eliminated the Nets, I believe. Or no, last Saturday. So they'll have 9 days off. So that's more rust. And we know ball players, and that's a long time to have no games, inactivity. You can practice all you want. You can do 5-on-5 and up and downs all you want. So the Celtics got to capitalize on the fact that they're the more active team at this point and figure out a means of making Embiid work. And sometimes making those other guys beat you. Maxey is a very good player. He's just not played well against Celtics. Now, that doesn't mean, let him go off, because he could find it. But, given that Harden is not the 50 ball Harden of his previous days, I said 21 points a game, that's nice. And, you don't expect that, and he can't get off the dribble like he used to. So you put Marcus on him, or you put Derek White, even Brogdon at times, make him work. You got some guys there was long, Harden's long in the tooth, and Harden does not have a great playoff history, and so does Embiid. So you're asking those 2 guys to really step up and perform in this crunch time. So let's see what the Celtics got. The Celtics are in there. This is a series for them to win. They're the favorite team. They've been the better team. So let's see if they got it. And I said, now Embiid's not 100%, so you make him work and make him work on defense. Get him in some foul trouble. Like, don't have him sit there and just shoot 15-footers. He'll kill you. We saw it the other night. Like, I think, my personal feeling, me, myself, I
Gary Washburn.
I love when people say that. Yeah, you fool. Me, myself, yeah, we get it. So I think Embiid's a top 75 player. Like, I didn't get a vote for the top 75, but I would have voted for Joel Embiid. I think he's that good. Offensively, he is just marvelous. Mid-range, not a great 3-point shooter, but capable. I mean, he does not miss from 16 to 18 feet, 12. Like, he just doesn't miss. He's got all, he's nimble. He gets to the rim. He can lay it. He's got a soft touch. Like, all of the above. He's got the perfect game for a big man in terms of just his offensive arsenal. But you got to make him work on defense, push him away from the basket, blitz him at times, make him make the right pass out the double teams, make him think as opposed to just damn shoot. If you just let him shoot, if all he's got to do is shoot, it's trouble. Mm-hmm. You got him passing out of double teams, spinning and seeing another defender there. Like last night, I noticed they doubled John Collins. And what happens? He turned around late in the game and fell because he didn't expect it. And then it was like a jump ball, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, make it hard on these dudes. Make it hard on Embiid. I mean, if you got to get beat by 3 by Georges Niang, hey, but you're dealing with a team that has its limitations. The last time they did that, PJ Tucker burned them. But is that going to happen for 7 games? Sometimes you got to give something up. And the Celtics gave something up against Atlanta and got burned in many cases by guys like Sadiq Bey and John Collins and DeAndre Hunter. But in this case, I think you got to focus on the big man. You got to make sure he has a hard time being comfortable.
Understood. So all of that being said, what are, we love a good little prediction on the pod. So what would you say are your expectations and maybe some predictions for this series?
Every game is going to be a dogfight, I think, for the Celtics. I think the Sixers are not just going to bow out quietly. I don't think the Celtics are going to have a blowout type victory, but I do expect them to emerge victorious. And I think the series will actually, the length of it will, I think, be shorter than Atlanta. I think Boston will win it in 5. But I think all.
How you gonna say they're gonna push them to the brink and have Celtics in 5?
Can you let me finish my sentence, Mr. Gary?
I knew that was coming.
The moment you said that. Sentence, Mr. Gary?
Yeah, Philadelphia's gonna push them to the brink. Celtics in 5. Like what?
And I finished
Celtics
my
sweep.
sentence. Gary,
I predict a sweep.
Don't you gotta put some I don't know, kerosene in your light up? Mike, you got over there just.
He just been wanting to talk about this mic all day.
Can't wait to talk about my microphone.
Finally
Go ahead,
said it.
Sherrod. I'm sorry, Sherrod. Go ahead.
What I'm saying to you, Gary, is that the games against Philadelphia will be closer than all the games we saw against Atlanta. But I think the Celtics are going to find a way to win them in a shorter amount of time. I just think they're going to have to work harder in less time than they had to do against Atlanta. 5 games. I think it'll be 5 games, but it'll be 5 close games. It'll be similar to that gentleman's sweep they had against Brooklyn, where even though they swept Brooklyn straight up, all of those games were tight, and it could have gone either way. And so I think it'll be like that against Philly. Now, Mr. Globe, right?
I think the Celtics in 6. I think that they're the better team. I think they'll be prepared. They're a familiar opponent. I don't know how familiar the Celtics were with the Hawks, and also with a new coach. They hadn't really played much of the Quinn Snyder Hawks. So they weren't the Nate McMillan Hawks or the Lloyd Pierce Hawks. They're the new Hawks. So I think this time they're a familiar opponent, with Embiid being less than 100%, Harden being a little aged. I think the Celtics having all their guys in their prime. I mean, Brogdon, White, Jason, Jalen, Marcus, all those guys under 30, all those guys, looking fresh. A healthy Robert Williams, Al still doing his thing. Although I think I wouldn't want to rely too much on Al, especially offensively. And then you got guys coming off the bench, Hauser, Grant Williams. Please use Grant if you're Missoula in this series. Like, he can help you. I think the Celtics prevail in 6. And I just think they're the better team. And I think Philadelphia has its flaws. I thought Philadelphia got kind of a break because people were, when they got Brooklyn, I thought that they got kind of a break because Brooklyn's still trying to figure some things out, don't have a primary scorer, even though Mikal Bridges had a very, very good stint with Brooklyn. Obviously, there was some confusion of who is they blew some leads down the stretch. Brooklyn wasn't the opponent that Atlanta was. And Brooklyn was probably the worst team in the playoffs. So Philadelphia got kind of a break there. But I just think the Celtics are like, okay, we've gotten our mulligan out of the way with Atlanta. We weren't familiar with them. This is an opponent that we do know, and they're going to be prepared. And so I just think Celtics in 6. What about you, Kwani?
I do think it's going to be a fun series. I don't think Joel Embiid's going to let up without a fight on this one. But to both of your points, I still do think the Celtics are the better team. And honestly, right now, I think they're still the better team in the East. Obviously, the Bucks got upset, and we take seeding lightly sometimes. But I think they've proven this season that they are right now the best in the East until they prove otherwise. So I think it'll be an interesting season. Before we wrap up, though, I would be remiss if we didn't talk quickly about Heather Walker. She was a VP for the Celtics and for their public relations department, and just recently passed away after a hard fight with cancer. But I know the two of you worked with her. I had an opportunity to work with her as well. So I'd just love to hear you to share a little bit about your time with her.
Heather was great for me. I mean, coming in from Detroit, a decade ago, Heather was one of the people that really kind of helped me assimilate with the players. When I needed Paul Pierce for whatever, she was able to make that happen at times when I thought there's no way in hell that Paul's going to talk to me about this. She was able to make those type of things happen. And then just in general, she was just a really good person, great spirit to be around. Physical basketball player, which I respected in our media scrum games. Her and I matched up a few times with each other and against each other and with each other. Just an enjoyable being to be around, and is going to be missed by so many of us.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like I was very emotional moved when I found out that she passed, and when we got the message last week that she was moving into a hospice. And Heather was amazing. She was funny. You know, I think that the people that follow that, you know, like the fans may not understand that the relationship between the media and the public relations of the Celtics were like, it's like going to high school. You see them every day. It's you form friendships with them. You might even have a drink with them. You know, they have different interests. Their interest is of the team. Your interest is to cover the team. So you work together. And Heather was always one that say, hey, come out to this community. She was always ensuring that the Celtics did all the events throughout the communities, all over Boston, not only in the good, nice communities, not only in the rich communities, but sometimes in the tough and troubled and underrepresented communities. And she was there, and, you know, she'd always want you to get a line in about the community efforts that they were doing, because she wanted to help promote and help, you know, bring more happiness and more things, you know, when they had a new basketball court in Roxbury or Mattapan or whatever. So it was always fun to deal with Heather. I used to joke Heather, because Heather was no joke when it came to ending an interview. Last question, you know,
right?
Yeah, like,
and she really meant this is the last damn question.
Yep.
Thank you, Kevin. Like when it was time, when our time was gone, it was over, and Heather made sure of that. And so that became our running joke for years. It just Heather did not play when it came to ending an interview or any interview session. She let herself be known. She was a strong woman. And I think people need to understand that a strong woman in the Celtics organization, one of the highest ranking women, someone that everyone respected. And it's just a tragic loss, because, I mean, I remember when she came out to Kevin Garnett's jersey retirement last March, and she was battling and struggling, but she was okay. You know, she was emotional, and you know, who knew that would be the last time some of us would see her. And she, you know, and two daughters that we've seen grow up. I mean, I think, we've literally seen, I think she had her oldest maybe during 2008, 2009. So she is 13, 14 years old, and we've seen her grow up, and then the youngest might be 9 or 10. So we knew her before she got married, or when she was, I think, dating her husband, and then boom, two young ladies that she's raised, and her husband, Steven. So it's just tragic, and it's terrible. And I feel for the family. I pray for the family, and we all lost something. Because, I mean, she was a great friend. So we would laugh and joke with Sherrod, laugh and joke with, and, you know, she didn't take no mess from us, and it was a good relationship. And I think that people don't, when you do this job, you make friends and relationships. We have, you know, we not only cover the team, you get to know people that work in the organization, and you develop friendships with them, not only, and you care about each other, see their family, see their kids grow up. You know, one time they bring their kid, there's kids 2, now the kid's 10, and you're like, well, oh my God. You know, time flies, and so this is a very tough, difficult loss. She is, you know, we lost from the Pacers. We lost David Benner last couple months ago, who was a great PR guy for the Indiana Pacers, and now Heather. It's very sad, and she did so much for the organization. She was in many cases the face, the players. I mean, you ask Garnett, and I saw Ray Allen put a tribute to her. The big three, you know, those players, and, you know, even young Marcus, when, you know, because she kind of moved up, so she didn't deal with much in the later years with like Jason and Jalen. She's more dealt with, in those days, the Paul, Kevin, you know, Rondos and those guys. You asked them about her, and, you know, they have fond memories. And
she had her work cut out with them too, the way she's talking about it.
Yeah, and it's not easy. And I think that people all want to work for a team. You want to do that. Like, yeah, you got to convince, you know, our friend Rajon Rondo to come to this event, or talk to the media when you don't want to. You have to convince players, guys that feel like they don't have time, that no, you got to make time. You got to do this. Or do this for me for 5 minutes, or like it's a constant challenge. And so we all grow close, because it's like a family. And we lost our family member, and it's very sad. So I pray for her.
Yeah, we definitely did. I think about just the fact of, we mentioned being a trailblazer too, I think is really important, with her being a woman in a VP position in one of the most established, well-known franchises in the NBA. Just all the conversations I had with her about the things that she would go through behind the scenes of just really solidifying the fact that women belong in the world of sports. I will never forget those conversations. And to your point, I do appreciate how, even though I was new and figuring out my footing in the industry, she was still hard on me in the sense of like, it's not easy. And I want to make sure you understand what you have to go through when it comes to being able to be strong-willed, but just be successful in this industry as well. So again, prayers to her for her family, for all the people that were close to her, but she will definitely be very much missed in this world. And I also just appreciate being able to, I put on Twitter, like standing on the shoulder of a giant like that, who was so unapologetic about what she brought to the table. And I hope other young women can read her story and understand how important she was to the organization. And for those that obviously, may not have heard of her before, didn't really know about her, there is a movement called Move for Heather. It's on Facebook. It's online. You can donate to hopefully finding more research and getting eventually a cure for glioblastoma, which is the cancer that she was suffering with at the end. So again, much love to her family. And that being said, this was the A-List podcast. We are looking forward to this series against Philadelphia. Make sure you, of course, stick with us all throughout that, and hopefully further on for the rest of the Celtics season. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is the A-List podcast. Thank you for listening.